Welcome back to the Broad Street Sports Podcast featuring Zachary Chavy. And today, in this first return episode, I will be giving you my 2024-2025 season predictions. I will be going division by division, predicting the standings of each, and then I will give you my award winners and then my NFC and my AFC predictions for who will make it to the Super Bowl. All right, so we're going to start off with the NFC East here. This division, it's between two teams every year. It's the Cowboys and it's the Eagles. You barely see another team win that division. You saw the Commanders win it in 2020, which was a weird year, and they won it with a losing record. But let's just start off with fourth place. I think everyone's consistent with this. It's going to be the New York Giants. The Giants, they lost Saquon, and they try to replace him with Devin Singletary. Singletary is a good back, but he's no Saquon Barkley, and Barkley gave so much to that offense, and they finally get a receiver to go along with him, but Barkley leaves, and then they draft Neighbors, and now Neighbors is the number one guy there. He could have a really good rookie season, but I feel like teams, that's going to be their number one target. They lost Darren Waller to retirement. They got young guys like Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson. Their offensive line, except for Andrew Thomas, is really shaky, but I will give it to them. They have built a great defensive line between Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Kayvon Thibodeau. Those three guys right there are cornerstones to their defensive line, and it could help them in any way of finishing second or third in this division. But as of right now, they're fourth place. I think the highest wins they could get is maybe 5 or 6. All right, moving on to third place in the division, I have the Commanders. They made a very good draft pick this year in drafting Jaden Daniels. They finally get a good quarterback in there to help Terry McLaurin. But then they make the questionable decision a couple weeks ago in trading Jahan Dotson to a division rival in the Eagles, which the more and more targets you get rid of a rookie quarterback, it hurts them even more. Jaden Daniels is a very good quarterback, could really help them this year. It's just, I don't know how they're going to play. They've lost a lot of guys on defense, especially trading Chase Young and then Montez Sweat, which Sweat has done with the Bears that second half of the season. Really shows that they pretty much gave him away for nothing. And then they had the offense. Their defense is all right. And then Dan Quinn's a more defensive guy, so he brought some of his guys from the Cowboys over with Tyler Biadasz, Dante Fowler. They have guys in there like veterans like Bobby Wagner, and they brought in Jeremy Chin, Frankie Louvu. They brought in guys to help this defense, but guys like Emmanuel Forbes, he needs to have a strong sophomore season because it was time and time again last year in his rookie season. He was getting cooked by a lot of receivers. So we'll have to see what happens there. And then moving on to second place in the division, I have the Dallas Cowboys. They barely made any moves. The biggest move they made was re-signing CeeDee Lamb last week. And other than that, it was re-signing a past his prime Ezekiel Elliott and then bringing in Dalvin Cook. A backfield with Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott in 2024, that's all I should need to say. Those two guys are way past their primes, and to think that they're going to make any difference for them, I don't see it. I could easily see Rico Dowdle being the running back one halfway through the season. And then this is a contract year for Dak. We'll see how he plays. It's either he plays well and they lose in the playoffs, or he plays really bad and they don't even make the playoffs. Either way, for him, I don't see him. I see him getting paid. I just don't know if it's going to be the Cowboys or another team. I think he's an okay quarterback. It's just he's had so much pressure put on him in Dallas that he's never been able to relax and put his two talents to the test because they only see weaknesses and quarterbacks never great things. So, but CeeDee Lamb, I think he's primed for another strong season. He has really no competition in that wide receiver room. Brandon Cooks, he's not the 1,000-guy receiver he used to be. And then they lost DaRon Bland. He's going to be out the first half of the season. That's going to be a huge hit for them, especially with Trayvon Diggs coming back off a torn ACL. So the reason I have them in second place is there's too many questions with this team, and the more and more questions that come up, the less confidence I have in them of winning this division. And then first place, I have the Eagles. The amount of moves they made this offseason after the way they ended the second half last year, they addressed a lot of needs that were the reason they had that historic downfall. They paid a running back, which Howie Roseman never does, in Saquon Barkley, which was a huge move. And him doing that has solidified the running game and make sure that they can't be putting in Kenneth Gainwell every third down. And then bringing in Kellen Moore for offensive coordinator gives this team new life. It gives versatility. He'll be running play actions, like he'll be doing pre-played motions all throughout the field. And Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, new receiver Jahad Dotson, Saquon, Goddard, Hurts, those are all guys who are primed to have big years this year. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they loaded up on secondary, drafting Quinyon Mitchell in the first round, which was a huge draft pick right there. He slid, and they picked him up right there. And then grabbing Cooper DeJean in the second round, getting 2 of the 4 best corners in the draft in back-to-back rounds shows how much Howie Roseman was willing to break out of his comfort zone and draft positions he barely drafts. And then grabbing a guy like Jalen Hunt in the third round, not very well known, but still a great move for them. And being able to do that shows that Howie Roseman wants this team to win and is willing to do anything possible. Losing Hassan Reddick losing him will not help because he was the closer for this team. He's the guy who would get that sack for you on 3rd or 4th down with under 2 minutes left to go. But it's going to come down to these guys who are young and ready to develop. Nolan Smith has not shown much to me in the preseason, especially playing into the third quarter of the third preseason game is never a good sign. So we'll have to see what he comes out of him. Jalen Carter, I think he can be an all-pro this year. He is a monster. He had a great rookie season last year and is looking to build off even more. And then a guy like Jordan Davis, this is it for him. If he doesn't prove that he was a first-round pick, this is a contract for him. If he can't play well, they're going to maybe accept his last year option and just let him go. Because with Howie Roseman, he doesn't make the greatest draft picks, but at least he knows when to get rid of them. And then you have a guy like Milton Williams, who is on a contract year. He's going to be the third defensive tackle and could have a big year in this rotation. And then you got guys like Brandon Graham in there. And then you got a guy like Bryce Huff, who you're paying $17 million a year, coming off a 10 sack season last year. Guy can get pressures. Can he get the sacks too? That's the question. Can he I don't know if he'll be able to replace Hassan Reddick's productivity, but we'll have to see what he does. And then bringing in a guy like Devin White, it's a huge move. Getting a linebacker of his caliber, even though he's had a bump in the road ever since his sophomore season where he helped the Bucs get to the Super Bowl. It's been up and down for him. I just think a change of scenery was very much helpful for him, and we'll have to see what he does with it. And then Nakobe Dean, we're going to have to see what he does because he's a third round pick that no one wanted to draft, and he still has yet to prove that every team that missed on him or didn't draft him made a mistake. This is it for him. He didn't play his first year. When he got limited snaps, when he did, he played well, and then he was completely injured last year. He should be the second linebacker next to Devin White, but we'll have to see. And then Jeremiah Trotter, the 5th round pick out of Clemson, has already looked like a beast in training camp in preseason. I expect him to have a big role this season and could be the future linebacker of this core as the years go by. And then bringing back C.J. Gardner-Johnson might have been the biggest move on the defense because he brings that energy, the energy that was very much missed at the end of the season last year. You saw it even when against the Niners. The Niners were just talking their smack, and the Eagles just felt like they had they couldn't talk back to them. And Gardner-Johnson brings that energy. He will get up in their face and talk to smack because that's just his personality, and that's what made this defense so great in 2022. And bringing him back for 3 more years is a very huge move. And then I love him rocking the number 8. He's got that Mamba mentality. He's ready to go. And then Reed Blankenship, he wore the green dot last year. He was the captain, and now he's looking for another prime season. Led the team in tackles last year. And then the guy with the most questions, I think, Darius Slay. I mean, he's good and all, but this is probably his final year in Philadelphia. My main thing I'm looking for him is how he's able to hold these guys accountable and be the leader for them and help them develop as he is towards the tail end of his career. So that's my predictions for the NFC. So I'm going to move on to the NFC North now. 4th place in the NFC North is the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, they drafted a good quarterback in J.J. McCarthy with the 11th pick, but unfortunately he got hurt in the preseason, so now they're looking to go to Sam Darnold for the starting QB, which I don't think is the best decision. He's shown time and time again that he's not a good quarterback. Drafted number 3 by the Jets, hasn't shown anything. I mean, the Vikings, they have a good offense. They have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson, who will be out probably at least the first 4 weeks of the season, will be on the PUP list. But I mean, you know what you're going to get out of Jefferson. It's just if they're going to have enough time to get the ball, and I just don't see Sam Darnold being the guy to do that. So I think they'll finish 4th, maybe with like a 5-win season. And then for 3rd place, I got the Chicago Bears. The future's now for them. It's Caleb Williams. It has to be Caleb Williams. He was the number 1 overall pick. They had the confidence in trading Justin Fields, who still had a whole lot of potential left. They had the number 1 pick from the Panthers trade. They drafted him. They surrounded Caleb Williams with probably one of the best offenses a quarterback could ever get in his rookie season with DeAndre Swift, trading for Keenan Allen, extending DJ Moore, and then drafting Rome Odunze at number 9, and then don't forget about Cole Kmet, who's a very solid tight end. That offense is set up for greatness. And then the defense, it's been growing, and they keep adding pieces. TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, both linebackers they signed last offseason, played huge dividends for them last year and played great defense. Bringing in a guy like Kevin Byard, re-signing Jalen Johnson, probably a guy who's easily snubbed off the top 100, easily a top 10 corner in the game without a doubt. And then they have guys in there who can make an impact. And then, like I said earlier with the Commanders, trading for Montez Sweat at the trade deadline looked like a huge move. He could easily be their right end in the future, and extending him was huge too. So moving on to second place in the NFC North, I have the Green Bay Packers. The way they played down the stretch was very shaky, but then they turned a lot of heads, destroying the Cowboys in AT&T Stadium. Jordan Love looked like a franchise quarterback, and that's why they paid him a franchise quarterback money. It's just gonna be how he plays this season. I think Jordan Love is a good quarterback. It's just gonna see how he plays. He's got the same receivers from last year. They added in a great running back in Josh Jacobs. The defense has always been good, and then adding a guy like Xavier McKinney and then Edgerrin Cooper in the second round of the draft, those two guys are really good on the defense. And then it's like I keep saying, it's gonna come down to Jordan Love. Is he their franchise guy? He showed very much so that he could be it last year, but he's had some shaky moments. He'll play really good one week and then terrible the next. Like he played terrible against the Giants, and that's the reason they lost last year to Tommy DeVito and them. But then he had that game against the Cowboys. He's shown again and again that he can be a franchise quarterback. It's just can he do it at a consistent rate? And that's why I don't see them winning the division, and that's exactly why I see the Lions winning the division. They had the same team from last year. Dan Campbell seems like he knows his players. He knows how they react to everything and stuff like that. And I just feel like knowing that, they are the reason they're going to win the division. Amon-Ra St. Brown is primed for another great season. I can either see 1,300, 1,400 yards out of him. Jared Goff is a good quarterback for them, and I could easily see him winning this division. A sophomore year out of Sam Laporta, who had a great rookie season. Jameson Williams will be back. He's their number 2 receiver. He's great. The combination of Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery is very, very good. And then the defense. It was terrible last year. The secondary was absolutely terrible. They added guys. They brought in Carlton Davis in a trade, and then the draft pick of Terrion Arnold out of Alabama was huge, like very big for them. And then you got guys like Jack Campbell, a linebacker they drafted, and then Aiden Hutchinson, the core of that defense. He will be the guy leading them. He's the captain of that defense. And then you got a guy like Aleem McNeil, who is a great defensive tackle. And then they brought in Marcus Davenport too. I easily see them winning this division, just maybe a couple games over the Packers, and they've shown it, and again, they can easily beat the Packers. All right, moving on to the NFC South, I have the Carolina Panthers in 4th place. They made some offseason moves this year. It's still not enough, though. Bryce Young has to prove that he is worthy of a number 1 overall pick, and I just don't think he will be able to do it as well this year unless he goes out and has a crazy sophomore year. The best I could see them finishing is third or second, but as of right now, I don't see it. They added a guy like Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette. Those are 2 great receivers, and then they added Javon Sanders from Texas and Jonathan Brooks. So we'll have to see how those 2 play out. And then Chuba Hubbard is going to be their number 1 running back to start the season. And then the defense, it's very shaky for them. I mean, they didn't make that much moves on the defense, and it's trading Brian Burns and the compensation they got back just shows how much terrible management they have there. Dave Canales could be the right coach for Bryce Young. It's just I don't think he'll be able to change him overnight, because if you think about it, at least Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith both had good offenses around them. Bryce Young doesn't have the type of offense those 2 had, so that's exactly why I have them finishing 4th place in the division. All right, moving on to 3rd place, I have the New Orleans Saints. I have no trust whatsoever in Derek Carr. He showed last year that he could have easily won the division last year, but he played terrible football. he was very up and down. I know he was hurt, but they could have easily taken that division from the Bucks. They just didn't seem like they wanted it. They still didn't make great moves. The best move they made this offseason was for Chase Young, which since the injury, he hasn't looked like the rookie season Chase Young that we saw. Until they show that they're ready to win, I have no trust in Derek Carr. Chris Olave is a great receiver for them, but other than that, you don't know what you have with that offense. Alvin Kamara, he's on a contract. They've had contract issues with him. I don't even know if he'll be back with the Saints. And it comes down to Derek Carr. I don't like their coach in Dennis Allen. He's a defensive-minded guy. Doesn't know how to coach an offense. And I don't even think the guy they had at offensive coordinator last year was not good, and the one they brought in wasn't even as better. So I just feel like they're a mediocre team, and I don't see them edging out either of these, either the Falcons or the Bucks. Moving on to second place in the division, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They brought the same team back from last year. They're going to be primed to have another good season. It's just going to have to see how Baker Mayfield plays with Dave Canales now being gone on to Carolina. I think he could have another great season. He has Mike Evans back there, who's a 1,000-yard receiver literally every year. So we're going to have to see how that goes. And then you got Chris Godwin, who's there. You got, on the defensive side of the ball, you still got veteran guys like Levante David. You got Antoine Winfield Jr. You got Jamel Dean. You got those three core guys. It's just, in my opinion, the Buccaneers, they will always be good, but never good enough to compete for a Super Bowl. So that's why I have them finish in second place. And who I have finishing in first is the Falcons. The amount of moves they made this offseason is insane. Bringing in Kirk Cousins was a great move for them. Finally getting a quarterback for these young players who can actually help them develop is huge. Like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, those three guys could really be primed for good seasons, especially with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. And then firing Arthur Smith was maybe even a bigger move because he just didn't know how to use these young players. And now that he's gone, they brought in Raheem Morris. He's a defensive-minded guy, but still that Kirk Cousins is there with that veteran experience and will know how to get the ball to his core players. And then you brought in a guy like Rondell Moore, who it was unfortunately hurt now, and I don't think he'll be able to play the entire season. But then bringing in a guy like Darnell Mooney, maybe just change of scenery will help for him, and maybe he can be a good number 2 receiver. And then the moves they made on defense these past couple of weeks were insane. Trading for Matthew Judon and then signing the best remaining free agent in Justin Simmons. They might have the best safety duo in the league with Jesse Bates, who proved he's the number 1 safety in the league last year. He played great for them. And then bringing in a guy like Justin Simmons with veteran experience, they just feel like they have a good mix of young players and veteran players, and that's why I think they could beat out all three of these teams in the NFC South, which I feel is the weakest division in the NFC. All right, moving on to the final NFC division, we have the NFC West. In fourth place, I have the Arizona Cardinals. They made some great moves this offseason. Marvin Harrison is a generational receiver, and I think he could be the receiver of the future for them, number 1, without a doubt. Trey McBride is primed for a great year after a great sophomore season last year. I think he'll be great. And then getting Kyler Murray back will be huge for them. I think the way he played the second half stretch last year, he will at least help them get up to 7, maybe 6 wins. And it's just, they're good and all. They've made some good moves this offseason. I just don't think it's good enough to beat out these 3 teams in the NFC West because they've made better moves. And I just think they're better than what the Cardinals could be this year. Moving on to third place, I have the Seattle Seahawks. I like that losing Pete Carroll will be rough. He brought so much of that mentality for them for years. They made some good moves. But they lost a lot of guys on defense like Jordan Brooks, but then they still got the core 3 guys on receiver with DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Tyler Lockett, and they still got Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, but it just comes down to Geno. They traded for Sam Howell, which was, I don't know, it was like a weird move when it happened, but he'll be the backup for them. I don't even see him being the future quarterback. They had Geno. I feel like once Geno's done there, they'll find a new quarterback because I don't know what their move is right now. And then their defense, you know what they're going to get out of it. You got Devin Witherspoon, you got Tariq Woolen, you got Julian Love, who was a great signing last year and will probably be better this year too. And then they brought in Leonard Williams in a trade. He's still there. They got core guys there who can really help them, but I just don't think they are good enough to contend for a playoff spot or even the division. Second place, I have the LA Rams. They got Cooper Kupp back. He's going to be healthy. Losing Aaron Donald, that is tough for them. I don't know how they're going to be able to respond from that. He's a legend for them. He was the reason they won that Super Bowl against the Bengals, without a doubt. But they have guys in place for him that could give production. They got Byron Young. They drafted Brandon Fiske, and they have guys set up there. So, like, and they drafted Jared Verse in the first round out of Florida State. They drafted 2 Florida State guys who are great players and can help them at least finish second place in the division. And then they brought in back Darius Williams. They brought in Cameron Curl. They traded Ernest Jones, which I don't know about that. I mean, I don't think they didn't want to give him a contract, and they just traded him to the Titans. I'm not sure what that was about, but they had the guys set up there in order for them to at least make the playoffs, and they did make it last year. And as long as Sean McVay is there, they're always going to contend as long as they stay healthy. But first place in the division, I have the San Francisco 49ers. Even though they had disputes with Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams, both guys are back from what the reports are saying, and Trent Williams will probably be playing week 1. Brandon Ayuk, I'm not sure about because he's still got to get in football shape and stuff like that and get back to ramping up at the volume that he usually does. So I don't know, he'll be playing week 1, but they still got a great team. Brock Purdy, I think he's primed to have a great third year. I don't know if he'll ever help them win a Super Bowl, but I feel like Kyle Shanahan, he's a great offensive mind, will be one of the greatest offensive minds in the league. I just don't think the Niners, they're going to win the division, but I'm going to be completely honest with you, they'll find a way to choke. They'll find a way to choke in the playoffs. It's Kyle Shanahan. He folds under pressure, and that's what's going to be the end of them. And I think at that point, it's just going to – they had the guys, like I said, George Kittle. CMC has been a monster ever since he's got there. They got Deebo Samuel, Ricky Purcell, even though he had that incident, which is unfortunate, but he seems like he'll be back to the start of the season. And then they got the guys on defense. Fred Warner, easily the best linebacker in the game. You got Nick Bosa. You got Charvarius Ward. Hufanga will be back after tearing his ACL last year. You got the guys set up in that defense in order for them to help them win the division, and I think they easily will. All right, moving on to the AFC now. In fourth place, without a question, I have the New England Patriots. They barely made any moves this season. Drake May, I don't know what they're going to get out of him. Honestly, whatever happens with him happens because they lost Bill Belichick. I think it was about time. He was going to leave. They weren't going to contend anytime soon. Gerard Mayo, he might change the culture of this team, but not fast enough for them to even make the playoffs. I think they could easily be contending for the number 1 pick, and especially this year, the way it's looking, they could be very well set themselves up with Travis Hunter, which could be a huge draft pick for them, but I think they're mostly focused on rebuilding and just moving on to next year because I don't see them making any noise in the AFC, let alone the playoffs. So moving on to third place in the division, I have the New York Jets. I think the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, as long as he stays healthy, they could easily win the division if they really wanted to, but I think the Jets, they have the core pieces. Garrett Wilson could be primed for a great year this year after never had a good quarterback for as long as he's been in the league, which has been a couple years. But as long as Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy, like I said, they could easily be second or first in this division. It's just Aaron Rodgers is already 40, coming off a torn Achilles. We're going to see how he performs. Breece Hall is good. They brought in Mike Williams. They have Alan Lazard. They have the guys in there. They built up the offensive line with Tyron Smith, Fashanu. They have guys there to protect Aaron Rodgers. It's just I have to see, and he has to stay healthy for a full season for me to believe that they can be second or first in the division. Second place, I have the Buffalo Bills. I was really considered them being third, but they still got Josh Allen. Even though he is a turnover machine from time to time, he's still a great quarterback, and I still think he can carry this team, even though they've lost a lot of pieces like Mitch Moore, Stephon Diggs, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White. Those are all big guys for them the past couple of years, and losing them is huge. And then even Leonard Floyd, man, I don't know how they're going to play this year. I just think they'll be second because Josh Allen's a good quarterback. He will help these receivers grow, like Keon Coleman, Valdez-Scantling. I don't know about that move and stuff like that. But Kincaid is primed for a strong sophomore season, in my opinion. He looked like Josh Allen's number 1 guy down the stretch last year. And then James Cook, he's the running back 1 in that offense. He could easily have a 1,000-yard season this year. And then you still got Dawson Knox. You still got Sean McDermott, who will help them contend. It's just the Bills, the best I see them finishing is second and maybe squeaking in the playoffs, but the pieces they lost this offseason will pay huge dividends for them. First place in the AFC East, I have the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, they still got Tyreek, they still got Tua, Jalen Waddle. Signed OBJ. I don't think that will be a big move, but he'll be okay for them. And then they had the leading touchdown leader last year, and Raheem Mostert still there. They have that Devon A-Chain looked great last year in his rookie season and is looking to build off even more. They brought in a guy like Jordan Brooks. They have guys like Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb coming back sometime in the season, helping them because they were paid huge dividends for them last year and were the main reason they were number one in the division most of the year before they went down. So we'll have to see how they play. But I just think the Dolphins, they have the best roster out of any team in the AFC East, and I just feel like they can play the best down the stretch. I just don't have any trust in Tua, though. That's my main concern with their team. I just think he could help them win the division. Nothing further than that. Maybe a playoff win or two, but nothing like the Super Bowl. Until Tua can show me that he can perform in a different climate, because he's only played well at home or in warmer climates. Like you saw last year, they played terrible against the Chiefs. Until he can show that he can play in all kinds of environments, I can never see them getting past the first or second round. All right, moving on to the AFC North. In fourth place, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Steelers will still finish over 500. It's Mike Tomlin at this point. The way he coaches, he will somehow get them to over 500. It's just, I think with the question of, like, they got Russell Wilson, they got Justin Fields. They've already announced Russell Wilson will be the week 1 starter. I just think the way, like, it's set up, it's like a weird quarterback thing. Like, they didn't make much moves on the offense, which was their main concern. Their defense has always been top tier, and then bringing in a guy like Patrick Queen, signing him to a big contract will help even more, especially stealing him from a division rival will help. But I just think the defense is good, but the offense is way too like up and down for me to put any trust into them whatsoever. That's why I have them finishing 4th place, but definitely over 500 because the way Mike Tomlin always finds a way to do it. Finishing third, going for 3rd place in the AFC North, I have the Cleveland Browns. I think they will finish 3rd in the AFC North because Deshaun Watson, I don't have any trust in him whatsoever. In my opinion, that's looking like the worst trade, like close to NFL history, the one they made to get him, because now the Texans are even better than the Browns will ever be. They still got Stefanski. Nick Chubb won't be back for at least the first 4 weeks of the season. Who knows what he'll even look like when he gets back. Amari Cooper's there. They traded for Jerry Jeudy. They have Elijah Moore. They have a good offensive line built, and then the defense has looked great. It's just I don't think they'll be able to contend with these top 2 teams I have finishing above them. It's just they were played so well with Joe Flacco last year. I just think losing him and putting Deshaun Watson back in, who's not the same caliber, I feel like he's going to lose them a lot of games this year that they should win, and that's why I have them finishing 3rd place. In 2nd place, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Bengals could easily finish 1st. It's just I have so much trust in Joe Burrow. It's just he's coming off a huge injury last year, and Jamar Chase, he's still in contract disputes. We'll see if he can get that contract signed before the start of the season. And then they have T. Higgins for 1 more year at least. He's probably leaving after this season, and they've continued to lose guys year after year. They lost Awuzie to the Titans. They lost their offensive coordinator and Brian Callahan to the Titans for their head coaching job. They continue to lose guys, and I feel like the more and more they lose guys, the more and more like they won't be able to contend with these teams. So that's why I feel like they will finish 2nd place, because Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase will always be there. It's just how they're going to be able to build this team around them. But 1st place, I have the Baltimore Ravens. I just think getting Derrick Henry is a huge move, especially putting him next to Lamar Jackson. The worry of defenses having to try to guard between him running and Lamar, or Derrick Henry easily running over everyone in the defense. Derrick Henry, that was the right decision for him to make. Tennessee's been his home for years, but the way he's coming up there in age, and he needs to at least start contending for a championship at his age, because he's not going to have many more chances, because the more and more years come on, the more wear and tear will make an impact on his running ability and his stamina. So I think the Ravens will finish 1st, but I'm telling you this right now. Lamar Jackson will never lead the Ravens to a Super Bowl. He's just not that type of QB. He folds under pressure a lot. Him and Tua are up there with like guys I don't think could win a Super Bowl until I see something that will change my mind. Lamar and the Ravens will win the division, I think, in my opinion, but could easily get beat by a team no one expects them to get beat by, or by a team that is much better than them. I would take a whole lot more teams than I do the Ravens. I just think the Ravens, the way their division is set up, they could win the division easily because there's too many questions with the other three teams in that division. Moving on to the AFC South, I have the Indianapolis Colts finishing 4th place in that division. I just think the Colts, they have Anthony Richardson coming back. We'll have to see how he plays because he does not seem like he cares whatsoever about how his body feels or like protecting his body. And it seems like his rushing ability is his main strength because in the preseason he looked a little shaky when it came to passing the football. And they have guys like Michael Pittman. They brought in Adonde Mitchell in the 2nd round of the draft. Jonathan Taylor, if he can stay healthy, could be good for them. It's just that backfield. There's too many questions of injury with those two, and if either one that could go down at any stretch of the season. And then the defense is strong, but it's starting to like deteriorate as the years goes on because these guys are getting older. The guys who were the top tier guys of their defense are not as good as they used to be. So I just think they'll finish 4th place because I like the teams over them in the division. In 3rd place, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars, probably my one and only shocker in this entire thing here. The Jaguars, even though they made some great moves this season, signing this offseason, signing Gabe Davis, getting Brian Thomas in the draft, they still have Christian Kirk. I just have no confidence in Trevor Lawrence whatsoever. They have a good coach in Doug Peterson. It's just Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's a good quarterback for them, and I feel like he will make a lot of questionable decisions this year, and will. Like you saw it last year. They were top of the division last year and looked like they were building off the playoff win against the Chargers last year. And it's just, I think the way that ended last year, it's just completely ruined the morale of this team. And I feel like Trevor Lawrence getting that big contract was very questionable because I would at least need to see one more season out of him before giving him that contract. But I mean, they made the move. We'll have to see how it goes. But I just feel like they're going to finish 3rd place. In 2nd place, I have the Tennessee Titans. They've made a lot of underrated moves this offseason that nobody's really talked about. Bringing in L'Jarius Sneed in a trade is huge for them, and signing him to a good contract. He's easily their number 1 corner. And then they brought in Awuzie from the Bengals, and signing Brian Callahan was huge. Bringing in Calvin Ridley was a good move. They have guys set up there. They have Tony Pollard who they signed, but I think I like Tajay Spears a little bit better. They got Okonkwo. And then Will Levis played well down the stretch in the second half. It's just going to have to see how he plays to begin the season. I just think the Titans, the moves they made this season is the reason I like them over the Jaguars and Colts in the division and why I can see them finishing 2nd place. But 1st place, without a doubt, I had the Houston Texans. The way they finished last season, winning the division, was insane. C.J. Stroud had a great rookie season, and then they added even more to this team. They traded for Stephon Diggs, grabbed Joe Mixon in a trade, and then signed Danielle Hunter to go next to Will Anderson. Those 3 guys alone, putting into that defense who's mostly stayed the same, is great for them. Derek Stingley's there. They got Christian Harris, like I said, Will Anderson, Jalen Petrie, Jimmy Ward, and DeMeco Ryan seems like he's got this team in check, and the culture has been completely rebuilt in Houston, and that's exactly why I have them finishing 1st in the division. And in my personal opinion, the Chiefs' number 1 threat in the AFC. Moving on to the AFC West, I have in 4th place the Denver Broncos. They have a rookie quarterback this year in Bo Nix. They have Sean Payton still there, but I just feel like the roster they have right now, it's gotten worse and worse over the years, and I just feel like the team they have is not that good, and they could be the bottom feeder of the division for the next couple years unless Bo Nix shows something that's really, really promising for them. But other than that, I feel like the best they're just going to finish 4th place because they have too many questions. Their number 1 receiver is Courtland Sutton, and then that's it. They don't have a good team built up, and they've making that Russell Wilson trade. The more and more years go by, it's going to look like the worst trade in NFL history because they gave up so much to get him, and now their team's completely deteriorated, and they have so many questions going into this season, and I think they could be another team with the Patriots being that top pick. Moving on to 3rd place in the division, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. The best move, bringing back Antonio Pierce to be the head coach. They finally made the right decision. He helped rebuild that culture for them. He's going to be a great head coach for them. But then they didn't make any moves at quarterbacks that, opened my eyes. They brought in Gardner Minshew, who will be the quarterback 1. It's just, I think the best he can do is he'll get it to Devontae Adams. They have Jacoby Myers. They have Michael Mayer. And they drafted Brock Bowers, which is that surprised me a lot, especially having Mayer last year out of Notre Dame after drafting him. But I mean, and they lost Josh Jacobs, so I don't think Zamir White could give that production like he did. And I feel like as the weeks go on, losing Josh Jacobs more, like letting him go, will make its impact every single week. Moving on to second place in the division, I have the Chargers. The Chargers, they brought in John Harbaugh. They brought in Harbaugh. He's a great head coach for them. He will make an impact almost instantly for them. But then the biggest question I've seen this offseason for them, they lost both their receivers in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Easily, without a doubt, the two cornerstones of their offense the past couple of years. And they're putting in a guy like Ladd McConkey, who's looked great this training camp and preseason, and a guy with Quinn Johnson, who has so many questions about him. But as long as Justin Herbert can stay healthy, I can easily see them finishing second place in the division because Harbaugh's the right coach for them and will help them rebuild this culture as a whole. It's just I don't think they could be anywhere close to contending to the division. Number one, without a doubt, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. It will always be the Kansas City Chiefs until something changes. They got Patrick Mahomes, they got Travis Kelce, they got Andy Reid. That's all they pretty much need to win this division. And then they got to have a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, who's looked great for them as the years have gone on. And I just think that he will be great for them this year, especially in his third season. He has no competition whatsoever. Rashid Rice is there. Somehow snagging Xavier Worthy is insane for them. Patrick Mahomes, that could be their Tyreek Hill 2.0 with the amount of speed he has, and as long as he's able to control his speed and make the catches when it matters the most, he will help them. And then Steve Spagnuolo, he's been there for so many years, and the defense he's built has been insane. The confidence to get rid of L'Jarius Sneed and replace him with Trent McDuffie shows how much this defense believes in each other and shows how much that they have been a core reason that they've been able to contend. And easily last year, that was the best defense Patrick Mahomes has ever had in his career, and that's the reason they went back-to-back. It's just going to be how they contend in the playoffs. You could easily see them going for the three-peat. It's going to be interesting to see what team could take them down. All right, I'm moving on to a couple award winners. Comeback Player of the Year. I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. He tore his Achilles last year in Week 1. No one really, the way he just went down was, heartbreaking for Jets fans and, all New York fans over the world, pretty much. But, I mean, he's going to come back this season. If he can stay healthy and go play at least close to the old Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, he will win the Comeback Player of the Year, in my opinion. Rookie of the Year, a lot of people have been saying Caleb Williams. But the confidence I have in Marvin Harrison, I think he could have close to a Justin Jefferson rookie season that he had, or an OBJ. He is that good, and I know Kyler Murray will feed the ball to him as much as possible, and that's why I think he's going to easily be the Rookie of the Year for offense, without a doubt. The Defensive Rookie of the Year, I've taken a lot of it into consideration. I think the Defensive Rookie of the Year will be Terrion Arnold. A lot of people, especially over saying Quinyon Mitchell and stuff like that, a lot of people have thought otherwise, but I think it's going to be Terrion Arnold. This guy is going to be easily the number one corner for the Lions. I think he will make a huge impact for them. He will be great down the stretch for them, making plays and plays and plays. He just feels like he loves the game, and guys who love the game always show extra intensity every week, and I feel like he will be one of the main reasons that defense is one of the best in the league. All right, moving on to the Offensive Player of the Year. This was a tough decision here. I have CeeDee Lamb winning Offensive Player of the Year because I just think, like I said earlier, he has really no competition except for Ferguson in this passing game, and then Brandon Cooks is all right, but I feel like he's no CeeDee Lamb. So I think CeeDee Lamb is easily primed for a 1,400, 1,500-yard season without a doubt, and I feel like he could easily win Offensive Player of the Year. But Defensive Player of the Year, I got Mad Max Crosby. Bro, I think he was easily one of the best defensive players last year. Could have won it last year. I think he will win it this year. I could easily see him having over 20 sacks without a doubt. I think he could easily do it for them. It's just if he can stay healthy, which he has shown in the past, but that's, I don't even think, a concern for him. He's going to be the Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion, I think. But for MVP, this was the toughest decision for me. There's a lot of good guys who could win it, but I think the MVP this year will be Joe Burrow. Even though I had the Bengals finishing second place in the division, I think Joe Burrow could be primed to have a comeback season and have easily win the MVP because like I said when was with the AFC North, they could easily finish first place. I think if Joe Burrow can have that MVP season, they will finish first place, and I do see him having an MVP season. I think the way he's played in the beginning of his career, had an injury season last year. I think he's ready to come back, has that connection with Jamar Chase, and he's just ready to roll. All right, moving on to like my most important decision, my AFC and my NFC division conference championship winners. Out of the AFC, I have the Houston Texans beating the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Like I said earlier, the Texans, I feel, are the number one threat to the Chiefs, and they could do it in my opinion. They have the offense. If CJ Stroud can have another strong sophomore season, I think they could do it, and I have the Texans taking down the Chiefs and going to the Super Bowl. And then in the NFC, my NFC Championship is the Detroit Lions. They're getting back. I think they're going to get back. They're going to get back there again. They have the team to do it. And then I have the Philadelphia Eagles. You might think it's a little bit of bias. I don't think it is. They had the team to get back to there. It's just the coaching, how it's going to perform with this team. And I think the coaching will help them. And Jalen Hurts could have a great season this year and easily get back to the form he was in 2022. And I have the Eagles taking that game to go play the Texans in the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be Eagles-Texans without a doubt. I think that could easily be the Super Bowl. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think the Eagles are the best. The Eagles are the best team in the NFC. If anyone wants to fight me with that, they can go right ahead. I think it's without a doubt the Eagles. The way they've built this team is insane. Like, they have the team to do it, and I don't think the Niners could beat us. The Niners, they beat us last year because we didn't have the mentality last year. We were spiraling down. We built this team up this year. The Cowboys, they're consistent playoff chokers. They have no chance of beating us in the playoffs. And then the Detroit Lions, I just think we're going to face them in the NFC Championship is because that's the road it's going to end up going to. We won't have to play them until the championship game. The Falcons, they'll win the division and maybe win one playoff game. We saw how Kirk Cousins has played in the playoffs. He has a 1-4 playoff record. That's exactly why I have them in the winning division, but nothing else. But now, moving on to my Super Bowl predictions, probably what everyone wants to see here. I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl in New Orleans against the Houston Texans. You could say all you want that it's biased. The Eagles will win the Super Bowl, in my opinion. This is the year they could do it. Jalen Hurts will be back to his form. They brought in Saquon Barkley. They have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, trading for Jahan Dotson. This defense is rebuilt, and I think they will beat the Houston Texans in the Super Bowl. Other than that, that's my predictions. Those are my seedings of every division. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and other than that, enjoy the rest of your day. Look out for a short tomorrow, and then my picks for week 1 on Thursday. See you guys.